film lovers, we are back. And as always, we're
Off the Cuff.
I'm Felicia Haney with
Kevin KT Taylor. And we're your hosts for this new and exciting podcast, an extension of the Greater Cleveland Urban Film Festival, to better keep you connected all throughout the year, not just in festival time, but ironically, it is festival time. It's right around the corner, and we hope you've got your tickets.
If not, be sure to visit gcuff.org for all your festival needs. As a lead up to our September 15th start date, we're going off the cuff and behind the lens with some of Cleveland's brightest stars in filmmaking. And today, we're chatting with veteran award-winning producer, Johnny Woo. Welcome to the show, Johnny.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, Johnny's got people with him.
And Johnny brought friends. Yes. Tell us who you brought with you, Johnny.
I brought here with me the editor for the documentary. That's Muhlback.
Glad to have you. So we want to hop into this film, which seems really, really interesting. You know, a lot of times you see things on the show and it's just like there's nothing new under the sun. Like everything's been done and talked about. But really, I feel as a Clevelander that this is something that is not often talked about. So
yes,
I'd like to delve
absolutely
into that.
Listen, and just for those who don't know, Johnny is one of our star filmmakers in Cleveland. He's done so much for the film community in different ways. He has a indie film program that comes together once a month. Johnny, tell us about the name of the film group that you already host every month.
The film club that we host is called the Indie Club.
The Indie Club, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And we do that once a month.
Right. And the Indie Club is an opportunity for filmmakers around town to showcase their wares. You know, if you got a short, if you got a feature, you got a trailer, Johnny says send it in and he plays it. And then we got other people from the film community that come in and give notes and talk and interact with each other. It's a great program. As Johnny's been doing it. How long you been doing that, Johnny?
We started doing that in 2003, so that's quite some time.
Wow. We're talking about almost 20 years. That's excellent.
Show my age.
We have to do our own sound effects around here. I just give you some hand claps and cheer you on. Kudos to you for that. That is excellent. How can people find out more about this or become involved with the program?
Check out on Facebook. Look for Cleveland Indie Club on Facebook and join, and that's all you have to do. Simple enough.
All right.
And what I like about what you do with that, Johnny, is it is a segue into the film that he created recently, because Johnny will showcase, the restaurant. He says, make sure you patronize this center. It's a whole center, and it's pretty much kind of what the film is set up on too, Johnny, right?
Yeah.
The history of Chinatown. So let's jump into it. What made you decide I'm going to do a documentary? I know Johnny for action films and special effects and all that. And then out of nowhere, I look up and he done made an excellent documentary. What made you go do that, Johnny?
Well, I have done documentary in the past. We did one for the Japanese American Citizen League here in Cleveland. It's about Japanese American going to the internment camp, and then after that, relocating Cleveland. So that was maybe 20 years ago. So we thought about it a little bit 3 years ago, and we felt like maybe we should do something for the Chinese American, because we found out it was about 150 years for the Chinese American to be living in Cleveland. So it's like that's a great big number to maybe get a story out there and make sure that we can promote and educate people about the heritage and the diversity we have in Cleveland. So we applied for a grant in 2019. We got a grant to start in 2020. Unfortunately, pandemic kicked in and we couldn't do anything about it. And we started this plan again in 2021. Have a lot of setbacks because a lot of seniors that we try to interview, they didn't want to be interviewed due to COVID. So we had to schedule as much as we can and then get it going. Nick, when it started, had to put together everything and edit them together. Well, we felt like there's a need to tell the story, just because in Cleveland we have so many Chinese Americans who actually contributed to the city, and grew up here and found out about how to live in this city back then, where racism also was very high, and there was a lot of issue going on. But you can tell from the documentary there was not a lot of issues, but there were racism going on, and so you can get to show that Cleveland has been more accepting of people of diversity background than any other cities. So I think we have a really, really good city here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it's very interesting that the film made it to the Greater Cleveland Urban Film Festival. And I was telling Felicia that a couple of years ago, one of the founders of GCUFF, Donna Dabbs, we had a conversation about including a segment of just people of color. And what I thought watching your film was like, wow, the parallels of what the Chinese immigrants had to go through was very, akin to what we, talk about with a lot of the black struggles and whatnot. So it's a very great film. And to Felicia's point, it's not something you see. So it's a great story that needs to be seen, needs to be heard, needs to be told.
Yeah, yeah. We try to make it work, make to tell the story. Just we felt like there's a lot of story to tell with different kind of diversity group. Maybe next year or something down the road we can do something about the Korean American or the Vietnamese American, and to tell the story to see how they relocate themselves to Cleveland, how they had to survive and make it work, and make a living here and try to move forward.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I wanted to have Nick jump in on that because I would imagine with a story like this that there's so much information because this isn't a story that's been told over time. So there's so much information, so much good information. How do you know what to keep and what lands on the editing room floor?
There is a ton of different. Oh, sorry. There's a ton of different stuff that was left on the editing floor, and it was very interesting for me because I was really absorbing all of these stories firsthand because I was a part of the filming process all the way through the editing process. And what was interesting is it feels like there could be an entire series with this documentary based around all of the different interviews that we had. It was difficult, definitely choosing certain topics based around what people were saying, who fit certain molds better and stuff like that, but also just making sure that everybody's story was being told the way that it should have been told.
So how long was this process from start to end? Did it take you guys to get this done?
It's a very long process. We interviewed over 29 or 30 people, and
Wow.
we have over 6 hours of footage in the timeline. And then we had to talk to each other and say, we don't want to have repetitive storyline or people saying telling the same story, and cut, and then it still was very, very long. And then eventually I said to Nate, so we need to make it less than 90 minutes just because I get tired of watching it. So we managed to make it about 80 minutes, and we felt like it's a very robust, it's to tell the story that needs to be. We have a very private screening with all the Chinese American in Cleveland. We invited them over. We were surprised to find out that everybody cried at the end because the memory that brought to them what they had went through, and it's a very moving moment. It's always like, wow, I did not expect that to happen.
That's cool. So let me ask you, with that in mind, some of these stories that they're telling are very, close and sensitive stories. Was it hard getting people to come out and actually speak very candid about the journey?
All depends who they were. So we make it. We set everything up. We ask them to sit down to the teacher, and we joke with them a little bit, make them feel comfortable, and we talk about stuff normally as like conversation wise. We have Lisa Wong do some question with them, and ask them to repeat a question back and make it more like a storytelling perspective. It got to the point where they got very comfortable that they can tell the story without feeling there's a camera in front of them. And they never look at the camera. They always look at Lisa Wong and talk to her directly. And I think that would help out a lot to make them feel comfortable.
One of the conversations that stuck out to me in the film was when the young lady talked about talking to her daughter, and she said, "You look at both. Yeah, you already know where I'm going, right?" And she said that she asked her daughter, "Who did she identify with?" Because was she Chinese and her husband was black? Is that right? And so she asked her daughter, "How did she identify?" And her daughter said, "Black." And she said she was proud, but she also was hurt because it felt like her daughter had erased her part of her culture. And that was deep. That was a deep
Yeah, that
moment
was
for me
the.
in the film.
It's quite interesting. Maran, that's her name. She's
Uh-huh.
actually Chinese, Polish, right?
Yeah.
Chinese and Polish, and so that whole identity got erased that moment. It feel like it's hard. It's hard for her to feel, but hoping that when the daughter grows up, will understand that there's no race or any difference. We are all the same. Hopefully, that will be something that she will learn from the whole process.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to take a second to delve into that concept a little bit deeper, because I'd say maybe about a year or so ago, there were a lot of marches and things that were going on in Cleveland. It started in Asia Town, and but there were some folks, black folks in particular, who were getting some pushback for that. And I actually, not just only in Cleveland, I would say even at a nationwide level, but speaking particularly about Cleveland, which is where this film is based. There were a lot of black people like, hey, why are we marching with them? They never run our aid, and blah blah blah. But I think what this film does is shed light, or give a lot more insight to maybe people who think that way, or who don't know the Chinese story. So there was a comment from we have a film committee that watches the films, and one of the comments was that this film was, quote, very informative. It's nice to learn about Cleveland and a different minority demographic other than my own African American heritage. Without seeing this, I would not have known about our shared experience. So I'm not sure exactly what your goal is with the film, but I just wanted to share that comment with you and ask what your feedback is on it, and what was your goal with this film.
Thank you for the feedback. I think the goal is get the story out there, so the future generation in Cleveland, Ohio, can learn about another part of Cleveland, that is the Chinese American who struggle here in Cleveland and make the city what we have now. I want the people to remember that city of Cleveland is not just one race. We have everybody, the whites, the blacks, the Hispanic, Latinx, and the Asian American are working together to make what we have right now. We are embracing that right now. I know that every day it's getting better. The embracement between minority group are getting stronger and stronger, which is a good thing. And yes, I do agree. When there was a marching going for the Stop Asian Hate, there were lots of blacks feel like, why should we support you when we have an issue? You didn't come out to support us. Most of the reason why is one of the reason why it could be the Asian American population here are very much inclusive and very secluded from the outside world. They are afraid to go out there, um, to show a voice, just because they don't know how to deal with other culture beside theirs, and
Yeah.
that make them feel like they had to be all surrounding close into one group. So you don't see the Chinese hang out with the Korean. You don't see the Japanese hang out with the Vietnamese. You don't see that because each one of us go with our own group, and it's hard for that group to slowly open up and say we are part of the minority as a group, and let's go and embrace all the minority, all the groups together. And that's going to be something eventually to happen, but it's going to be something that take time to change. And we are hoping that with this documentary also can share our part of the story, and then we're hoping that this can also have us have more open dialogues with everybody else together.
I think you're headed that way, Johnny. By just having it in GCUFF, it's an opportunity for, a lot of times all communities tend to feed themselves. We show movies of our culture to ourselves. We do, all of these things. But when you can get in another space and now people can say, oh, you know what? They struggling like we were struggling, and they've come to this point. We've come to this point. So I think it's a great film, man, and I'm excited to have it in GCUFF.
Thank you for having us in the GCUFF.
Yeah.
And just from a different perspective and an editor's perspective, I just like to ask Nick's opinion as someone watching this film who, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do not appear to be Asian or you do not appear to be African American. So what do you get when you see a film like this?
Growth. Just from my own perspective of ever since I started to work for Johnny, this is a community that I've been lucky enough to be able to be involved with. But one of the things that I think about when it comes to the documentary is how a lot of, especially the younger people that we're interviewing in the documentary, like the change from Chinatown to Asiatown, because it feels like this melting pot of people. And going to the Asian festival every year, you really get to see everybody together, everybody showing off their different cultures. And it is an unbelievable feeling. And just hearing these stories, especially even seeing things that were on the cutting room floor, and, remembering different aspects of stories that melded everything together was just incredibly interesting for me.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Before you leave, we have a little bit of GCUFF trivia. What year is GCUFF celebrating? This is our what year anniversary? Uh-oh. I stumped y'all on the first question?
I don't remember. Is it 11 year?
Ooh.
What did he say?
11.
Oh, that was I want to say it was a very lucky guess, but you are correct. It is the 11th year. And my other question is, Johnny, you share a birthday with two celebrities. One is Kanye West, and who is the other?
I would not know. I don't follow any celebrities at all. Sorry. Felicia?
Yeah.
Look at that. I guess right.
Hey. All right.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a pleasure as well as a very informative chat. So we appreciate
Thank you.
us this evening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us where we can follow you, keep up with the film, and anything else that you guys have going on.
Well, for me, you can find me on Facebook or anywhere else with MDI Film, or you can just Google my name, Johnny Wu. You should probably find me everywhere.
All right.
And for me, it's Muhlback Cinema on Instagram and Troubadour Films. Anything with that name.
Oh, that sounds a little fancy. I need you to spell that one. What was the last one?
Troubadour, TROUBOR FILMSCLE.com.
All right. Thank you guys again. I am Felicia.
This is Kevin Taylor, and we had Johnny Wu and Nick Muhlback with us, and their film is History of Cleveland's Chinatown. Thank you, guys.
This has been another episode of Off the Cuff. Make sure that you are following us on all social media platforms at GCUFF Cleveland, and we'll see you next time.